coalition that supports responsible production practices, protects water and wildlife habitat, and helps to clean up the air. With a bigger team, you can win the battle of public opinion and position natural gas as the linchpin of a new energy future. To return then to what brings us together, shale gas is a tremendous opportunity for our economy, our national security, and the global environment. Working together, we can do well and do good. We can strengthen our country, and we can leave a better world for our children and their children. But it won't happen if we do nothing. We have to get started, and we have to get started effectively now. Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Reid. I just want to remind everyone, in case there's any forgetting, Senator Wirth has been a friend of the Colorado oil and gas industry for at least 21 years. He's been working with us since he was a congressman, then a senator. He carried water for us to get this industry deregulated, pipes open, and any number of things, and it wasn't easy, and he was a constant and steady ally, and I'm very happy that he's still willing to help us now. With that, we've got 6 minutes for questions. Please go to the side, and let's go. Anyone have any thoughts, questions? I've got one. I know you've been talking to people for the past month and a half, 2 months. This is a very ambitious plan, bringing together people who traditionally don't go to dinner together, much less work together. How's it being received? Any comments there?
Well, people say all the time, what's wrong? You know, here you have a fuel that is palpably in the industry's interest to expand its demand. Industry does a lot of nice advertising, but what's wrong on the Hill? The Hill hasn't budged an inch in a year and a half, and the industry keeps doing the same thing. It sort of reminds me of those ads for automobiles and safety. You know, you ram the car into the wall and the automobile dummies go crash and the springs go around all over the place. They back up the car, put the dummies back in again, and drive it at the wall once more. You know, it's sort of what's happening over and over and over again. You know, obviously, the organization that is being developed to deal with the Congress from the perspective of the natural gas industry isn't getting anywhere, so instead of doing the same thing, you ought to change tactics, and it seems to me change the team. And there are lots and lots of people, you know, who believe as we do about the importance of natural gas, but we're right back kind of doing that, watching the industry go through the same motions and the same approach to Capitol Hill that isn't working. In EPA, there are beginning to be a few signs, Greg Staple mentioned some of those earlier, a few signs of the industry getting organized. But, you know, who's all over EPA are your opponents. You know, incredibly well organized with teams of very, very sophisticated lawyers, teams of very sophisticated economic analysis, providing that information to EPA. Now, EPA is not a place of enormous amounts of depths of technical expertise. They reach out and bring in all kinds of outside information. And he or she who has the information and providing it are the people who are winning. And what's happening? You know, they are winning, you're not. You know, why is that? Because the capability of the industry to invest in this kind of, this isn't beanbag, as I said, this is very tough stuff. You know, it just simply isn't happening. I mean, it is to me bewildering. We've talked to many people in the industry who say, well, we're very, very decentralized. We can't make a move because we have too many different views. we're very conservative politically. You know, you get all of the reasons, but nothing effectively is going on. If you look at the legislation, the role that natural gas is playing in the legislation is almost zero. You talk to the leadership of the Senate trying to put together legislation, the role of natural gas has been almost zero. You talk to the leadership at EPA, the role of natural gas there is almost zero. It is not very different, Fred, from what it was a year ago. So a rational person would say, now wait a minute, if we're doing this last year and we weren't getting anywhere, and it looks the same this year, wouldn't we want to change course and change team or change approach or something? You know, I don't understand it. I am as frustrated as anybody. You know, as you say, I've been working with this industry from this section of the country for 30 years. I've never seen such a huge opportunity as this one in terms of economics, job development, national security, environmental integrity, you know, global capacity for the United States. Never seen something as clear as this. And you talk to experts, whether it's John Deutsch at MIT or Dan Yergin, discovering the shale gas opportunity in the last 18 months, and they're over the top about it and what the possibilities are, and also looking and saying, wait a minute, what is happening here? So, you know, something is amiss in all of this, and if I knew what it was, Fred, I mean, I'm not inside the industry. It's up to all of you inside the industry, you know, to, again, sort of look at what your objectives are. We've tried to give a list of what the objectives ought to be, and then how are you lining up your resources to try to meet those objectives? It's a basic strategic approach. This is not rocket science. You know, it's basic blocking and tackling for public policy. And again, the promise of natural gas is not going to be released, not going to be reached, you know, unless that basic blocking and tackling gets done.
The second half of Fred's question implicitly is how is it being received on the other side? I think that based on 20 years of working with and around the environmental community, it's really striking to me how receptive that community is to working with natural gas. As Tim and Fred said, these are not natural allies, but the Sierra Club, you heard from Amy Maul yesterday from NRDC. You're going to hear from Robert Kennedy Jr. at lunch. They're going to give you a strong challenge on your environmental performance, but you have a good record to stand on, and we've heard from the industry again and again and again how strong that record is. I think the point you have to think about is how to institutionalize those best practices so that the industry is not at risk from bad performers. If the industry can make its own best practices the norm, then the environmental risks will go very low, and you're going to have allies who are champing at the bit to get more natural gas into the electric power sector and into transportation for environmental reasons, for climate reasons, for air pollution reasons, for health reasons. You have a great opportunity, and this is a community that wants to work with you, but it does require a give and take, and that's what's really on the table right now.
Thank you, Reed. Tim, I want to take, excuse me, go, please.
I have a question for Senator Wirth. Senator, my name is Kip Shirotis. Nice to see you again. This is a tricky question for you, sir. Put your politician hat back on. Do you see any political common ground between coal and gas to avoid the political fights down the road?
You know, it's all very nice to say we're going to have a kumbaya moment, you know, and everybody's going to come together. The fact of the matter, you know, is that there's only so much electricity is going to be generated. And until the industry decides that what it wants to do is to get its share and increase its share and use allies, you're not going to get from here to there. The coal industry is doing a wonderful job of protecting its turf. They're very well organized, very impressively so. They've developed a whole alleged technology related to sequestration, capture and sequestration. Melanie mentioned that earlier. probably beyond any kind of cost estimates, but it sounds good if you say it fast enough. It probably isn't going to become a reality. The reality is the natural gas community. This isn't beanbag. I mean, you've got to be in there battling about this. Politics is all ultimately, gets worked out in some kind of agreements after conflict generates what the differences are and generates what the options are. Unless people are willing to define what their differences are, define exactly what it is they want to do, and then get that information to the decision makers, you can't come to any kind of an ultimate cooperation. It may be down the line that capture and sequestration works. I doubt it, but maybe it works, and we ought to be investing in it to see if it works. That may be the route to take, but other than that, I think you got to start in your own backyard. And again, this isn't going to be easy, and it's not going to happen by itself. But it's not going to happen, it seems to me, unless the industry decides it wants to happen and wants to change its ways to get it to happen. Looks very much the same today as it did a year ago. You wonder, what's been going on for the last year.
Anybody else? Hey, excuse me, I can't see because of the light, so who's there?
I have another question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you believe that our industry should support cap and trade policy in overall national energy policy?
Let me take a first crack at that. It's not a simple yes or no answer if you evaluate it simply on the effect on the industry. It's been shown that the Waxman-Markey bill in the House had so many protections for the coal industry that the share of natural gas used over the next 20 years would actually decline, that renewables would take a greater share of the market, coal would stay steady, and gas would get squeezed in between, as in fact you see in many markets today. But if you have a clean cap and trade without those protections for coal, then the price advantages of gas and, just as importantly, the opportunities to deploy gas strategically where it's needed to replace coal that's being put out of service for environmental reasons, in fact, increases the share of the market share of gas in the electric utility industry quite dramatically. I think that the study that Melanie referred to, the MIT study, looked at ERCOT, the Texas grid, to see what would happen under this kind of an open cap and trade system. And I'm not going to get the numbers exactly right, but as I recall, the gas share went up dramatically, the coal share went down, and the result was a 22% reduction in carbon emissions in Texas at a net economic benefit.
The cap and trade notion was originally introduced into legislation by late Senator John Heinz and me in the late 1980s. We had never intended in developing a cap and trade program that it come along with an auction. We had never intended that it be a revenue producer. It would be a straight cap and trade. And that's what worked in sulfur dioxide. The amount of sulfur was allowed to come out of utilities was squeezed down over a period of time by law. The only decision the